Alright, today we are talking about something that I think damaged a lot of us academically and nobody was really held accountable for it. And I covered a lot of school related stuff on this channel before, the Chromebooks, the phone ban, the rules, the people. But this one is different because this isn't just a complaint about something annoying. This is about a program that schools across the country spent real money on and forced students to sit through for hours. And genuinely believed it was helping when the reality for most students was something completely different. We are talking about iReady. And if you went to school in the last decade or so and you just felt something in your chest after hearing that name, then you already know exactly where this video is going. The lessons that never seem to end. If you know, you know, and if you don't, then consider yourself genuinely lucky because some of us did not get out of that. Let me give some context for anyone who somehow escaped this because I know not everyone had the same experience. iReady is an educational program that schools use for reading and math. The basic idea is that students take a diagnostic test at the beginning of the year that figures out where they are academically and then assigns them lessons based on that. The lessons are little interactive modules with characters and animations, and they're supposed to be engaging and educational and personalized to each student's level. Well, at least that's what schools are thinking whenever they spend money on this. And on paper, it all sounds fine. Personalized learning, meets students where they are, adapts to their level. That's not a bad concept at all, honestly. If it actually worked the way it was described, it would probably be a decent tool, and I'd have nothing to make this video about. The problem is the gap between what iReady presents itself as and what the actual daily experience of sitting through it feels like. Let's start with the diagnostic because this is where everyone's iReady experience begins, and it really does set the tone for everything that follows. The diagnostic is a test that adapts as you go. If you get questions right, it gets harder. If you get them wrong, it's easier. But the idea is that it finds your exact level by the end of it. And the first time you sit down and do it, you don't really know what to expect. So you just answer honestly and try your best because you don't know any better yet. And then you get your results that iReady has determined you are reading or doing math at a level that may or may not reflect anything close to your actual ability. And this is the first crack in the whole system because the diagnostic for a lot of students just does not feel accurate at all. You can have a bad day, you're tired, you're not feeling it. Now you got to spend the next several months being assigned lessons that are way below what you can actually do because the test caught you on a bad day. And the number it produces is now your whole identity in this program. Or the opposite might happen. You get lucky on a few questions, you get placed too high, and now you're spending months struggling with stuff that wasn't the right level for a completely different reason. But students immediately recognize it as off because the score is the score and the lessons get assigned based on that score, and that's just your life for the next few months. You don't get to appeal the diagnostic. You don't get to say, actually, I was tired that day. Can we try again? You just live with whatever number the test decided you were and work from there. And teachers have to report on your progress through the lessons, which means you're not just doing this for yourself anymore. There's now a number attached to your name that's sitting in a dashboard somewhere that adults are looking at. So now the pressure is fully on. You have to show progress. What started as a learning tool has now become its own separate job on top of everything else you're already doing at school. So now, congratulations, you now have homework and iReady. The lessons themselves are where I think iReady really earns its reputation because whoever designed these lessons made a series of choices that generally need to be examined by someone. The characters, the animations, the way every single concept gets explained. Why is it like this, bro? Just give me the problems, bro. Let me do the work and get out, dude. I don't need a character walking me through a scenario with sound effects and a little animation before we get to the actual concept. And this is not just an iReady problem, bro. This is for every educational website that does this. Stop, please. It doesn't make it more engaging, it just makes it slower. Just let me do the thing and go on with my day, please, bro. The pacing is what gives me the most out of everything too. Everything moves so slowly. Every single concept gets explained at a pace that assumes you need things repeated multiple times. And if you already understand the concept, which for a lot of students you do, since the diagnostic placed you on stuff that you already know, you are just sitting there, just waiting, watching the lesson move even though you already know all the material. There's no way to speed it up either. There's no skip button. There's no way to demonstrate that you already know this and can move on to something else. You just sit there and go through that iReady's pace, whether that makes any sense for you or not. And bro, for a lot of us, it makes no sense at all. Most schools that use iReady have a weekly or monthly minutes requirement too. You gotta complete a certain number of minutes on the program to be considered on track. And this sounds reasonable on the surface until you realize what it actually does to the whole situation. Because now the goal isn't to learn, the goal is to get minutes. And those are not the same goal. And honestly, this is a problem that goes way beyond just iReady. It's something to think about with school in general. So much of it just stops being about actually learning anything and it becomes about hitting some metric, getting the grade, completing the requirement, producing what the system wants. Like the actual understanding and learning doesn't really matter anymore. And iReady is one of the most obvious examples of that. So now you end up with students who are just running out the clock. They're technically on the program, they're technically getting minutes, but they're not actually engaged with anything on the screen. Because the problem was that the program created the behavior by making the minutes the metric, bro. You get what you measure, and what schools were measuring was completion. And I'm not gonna lie, bro, at some point, you just look at the situation now and think we are genuinely cooked because an entire generation of students went through this program, showed progress on the dashboard, and walked away having learned how to complete iReady and not much else. That was the whole outcome, bro. That's what all that money and all those hours produced. This is the thing that I think is the biggest failure of iReady as a concept. It created students who became very good at completing iReady and got nothing else out of it. The program measured completion and called it learning. Those are different things, and the fact that nobody with the power to change anything seemed to notice or care about that difference is genuinely frustrating when you think about the scale of it. I mean, how many students, how many hours, and what sucks is that iReady is not free. Schools pay for it, districts pay for it, and that money comes from budgets that could go towards other things. Actual books, actual resources, teachers, equipment, literally anything else. So at some point, someone in a district made a decision that iReady was worth it and signed a contract and rolled it out to every student and made it part of the regular school week year after year. And I genuinely want to ask, based on what did all these schools decide that this program was the move? Like, I don't understand most of the decisions schools make in general. Are they just digging their ass the whole meeting and picking stuff out of a hat? Like, what is happening? I also want to talk about what iReady does to a student's relationship with reading and math specifically, because I feel like this doesn't come up enough. For a lot of kids, the way you introduce them to something shapes how they feel about it for a long time. If your early sustained exposure to a subject is engaging and makes you feel capable, you're going to have a much more different relationship with that subject going forward. If your early sustained exposure to it is a slow, boring program that moves at a pace that makes you feel like your time doesn't matter and reduces the whole thing to a loading bar, I mean, bro, that leaves a mark. That affects how you approach reading or math in general and in ways that go beyond just the program itself. And iReady, for a lot of students, was a significant chunk of their school week for multiple years. That's a lot of hours to spend with reading and math in a context where the goal was only just minutes, rather than actually understanding, where the feedback you got was a completion percentage, and the students who actually needed reading or math support and got iReady as their main intervention, and the program just didn't connect with them. And nobody flagged it because the dashboard said they were completing their lessons. I mean, that's a real failure with real consequences, and I don't think it gets talked about enough when people just focus on how boring the program is. It's boring and annoying, but this stuff is also really serious. Now look, are there students who actually got something out of iReady? Probably. Is the concept of adaptive learning bad? Nah, I mean, it's actually a solid idea in theory, and I'm not here to say that nothing about it ever worked for anyone, but the universal experience across students everywhere is pretty consistent, and it's not good. The program became famous for a reason. You mention iReady to basically anyone who went to school in the last decade, and the reaction you get is immediate, and it is never positive. If you're going through this right now, bro, all I'm gonna say is that it'll get better. This is just general advice for anything, but just keep going, bro. Like, it has to end. You'll be good. That's all I gotta say about this though. Sub, like, join the Discord, and let me know in the comments how good your life has been without iReady. But I will see you guys in the next video. Peace. Also, Facecam coming back soon. I gotta get a better camera, but yeah.